Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the News Today edition of 6th of June, wherein we pick up all important news for the day and explain it to you simply from examination perspective. So let's look at the important news which we are going to cover today. First is Kodaikanal Solar Observatory has provided a valuable insights into the solar cycle. Then Microsoft has unveiled quantum chip Majorana 2, again a very important development in the fields of quantum computing. Then Prakash Narayan Bird Sanctuary has been designated as India's 100th Ramsar site, a very important achievement for India. And then government has announced reforms to deepen GSEC market and facilitate FPI in equity segment, of course, to boost investments in Indian economy. We are also going to see certain quick updates today along with personality news, that is Maulana Barkatullah Bhopali. So the very first news here is Kodaikanal Observatory has observed something regarding the in sun, which is of course going to talk about how we are going to see solar cycle. Understanding solar cycle is very important for us because we have satellites, we have GPS working. So the way sun is behaving is of course determining how exactly the communication networks, how exactly satellites, how exactly astronauts in the space are going to be affected due to this. So that is why it is very important to understand solar cycle. And this observatory has observed something called as super granulations, which is again helping us to determine that how exactly solar cycles behave. So you must have observed, just to make you understand very simple manner, once something is boiling in a pan or in a vessel, what do you see? The boils. So usually what happens, the hot water comes up and the colder water sinks down. Similarly, sun is also composed of plasma. What are plasmas? Plasmas are basically electrically charged gases. So whenever those plasmas around the sun are coming or they are making an upward movement, and this convection is basically called as super granulations. I will show you an image as well so that you can understand how exactly it is happening. So in the surface of sun, the plasmas come out or they move upwards in a convection manner, and that is called as super granulation, and that is helping us to study the pattern of solar cycles. So let's understand what exactly are solar cycles. Just like earth has its own seasons, similarly sun also goes through a series of activity that is called as solar cycle. So again, we need to understand how exactly solar cycle behaves. So here the sun basically is composed of, again we have discussed, plasma, which are electronically charged particles, and that is this electronically charged particles or gases are releasing very high amount of what you call as massive magnetic field. So this magnetic field reverses its direction every 11 years, so that the south pole becomes north pole becomes south pole, and that is basically going through a flip situation every 11 years. The cycle changes, is called as solar cycle. So in this entire 11-year duration of solar cycle or complete flipping of the poles, there are series of events which is happening in sun, right? So in this cycle, the sun has distinct phases. One is called as solar minimum. What is solar minimum? Technically a phase in that 11-year where again sun is very calm in nature, just like we have calm seas sometimes, and sometimes seas have storms. So again, the calmness phase of in the solar cycle is called as solar minimum. Solar minimum, again we see less number of or low activity of sun, we see less number of sunspots. I'll discuss what are sunspots. Sunspots are basically dark spots which you see in sun, and that is basically a colder region along the sun. And whenever you observe sunspots in the sun, it means sun is in its active stage, that is called as solar maximum. So again, once solar cycle comes, our suns becomes active, that active phase in this 11 is called as solar maximum. And again here you will see sun becomes very stormy, featuring the highest number of sunspots and frequent eruptions. Now, how it is impacting the space weather, that is why it is very important to read and again observe about solar cycle. And this is where this Kodaikanal Observatory has observed something called as super granulations, which is going to help us understand the pattern of solar cycles. And understanding solar cycles is very important. Why? Because sun is affecting a lot of things which is happening in earth. We have satellites placed in different orbits, we have communication things, we have GPS working on those satellites, we have electrical grids in our country. All of those things gets affected due to the solar maximum situation, wherein there is a release of something called as this solar flares and coronal mass ejections. So that is something helping us, and this is very important to understand those solar cycle phases, right? So specifically when solar maximum is there, or else wherein in the 11-year phase, when sun is in its most active phase, then we see higher number of sunspots, and sometimes we see sudden burst of X-rays and radiations, and that is traveling at a speed of light, and which is caused by release of magnetic energy in the sunspot regions. Clear? I'll show you what are sunspots. And then there are coronal mass ejections. Again, as I have discussed, the sun usually is composed of electrically charged gases called plasma. When these plasma gases in the active stage is getting erupted, that is just like a volcanoes, this plasmas also get erupted, and that is called as coronal mass ejections, wherein the massive bubbles of plasma and magnetic fields flung into the space. And these two things are very important to study. Why? Because they are impacting the radio communications, they are impacting the power grids, they are impacting the navigation systems, they are affecting the satellite operations, affecting astronauts, induce geomagnetic storms, and then they also come to events like auroras. So again, you must have seen northern lights. So how exactly these solar flares or this coronal mass injection, once they interact with atmosphere, we see a very beautiful image in sky that is called as northern lights, right? In the North Pole and South Pole, we have the other phenomena over there. So that is the understanding of solar flares and how is it impacting the Earth's solar weather. So that is something which is very important. I'll show you some diagrams. First, this is an example of sun which is at a very calmer stage, that is called as solar minimum. You cannot see any sunspots over here, but once sun is in its active stage, that is called as solar maximum, you see sunspots like this. So this visibility is giving us a picture that again sun is in its active stage, and we can expect what? Solar flares and coronal mass ejections, and that is very important us to understand. Now this Kodaikanal Observatory has observed something called as supergranulations. What is supergranulations? I have discussed when the plasma in the form of convection comes out and that is creating something called as supergranulation. So this is something called as supergranulation, wherein the plasma is coming out, and that tells and suggests that sun is now in its active stage. So now in this 11-year span of time of sun cycle, we are observing if supergranulations are happening, then we can assume that sun is in its active stage in its solar cycle phase. Then we will also see something called as, again, this is how coronal mass ejection happens. Again, this is a complete plasma with magnetic field which is coming up, of course more massive as compared to solar flares who are just composed of X-rays and radiations, right? But these are the two differences between these two. That's how it looks like. Then we have how it is impacting. Let's say these are satellites, this is the atmosphere. So now, of course, with this solar flares or coronal mass ejections, there will be disturbance in the communication system, GPS system, astronauts in the space, and that's why it is very important to understand and observe these solar cycles. So a very important development. These kind of questions can be asked in your prelims examinations with respect to the nature of questions being asked by UPSC. So the key terms, solar flares, solar cycle, coronal mass injection, supergranulations are very important to be read and understood clearly, so that I have picked up certain images so that you can visualize things, and by visualizing things we can remember those topics for a longer duration of time, which is of course required for the examination. Then little bit about Kodaikanal Solar Observatory. It was founded or established in the year 1899, and it is subsumed then the Madras Observatory. Basically aim was to obtain data on how exactly sun heats up Earth's atmosphere and to understand monsoon patterns. Why Kodaikanal was chosen? Because it has maybe clear skies, it has a very high elevation, it has its proximity to equator, and its dust-free high altitude location is making it appropriate to set up as a solar observatory. So location under Indian Institute, it is coming under Indian Institute of Astrophysics and is located in the Palani range of Tamil Nadu. Facts hai important for your prelims examination. That's how you're going to read this topic. Again, you can expect questions around solar flares in the upcoming mains examination as well from the topic of science and technology in GS paper number 3. Just quick read of that is going to help you down. You can also draw certain images which can of course give you a certain presentation edge in your answers. So use them as in when you feel it. Then again, a major development in the fields of quantum computing. We know about computers, we know about supercomputers, but supercomputers cannot do very maybe tasks which are required. For example, studying climate change model, studying, let's say, or a thing which is going to make any kind of new medicine. So that requires a very high computation power. Imagine, let's say, a bicycle. It can do things, right? Then we have a Ferrari car. It can do a lot of things in a more efficient manner. And then we have, let's say, space rockets. So that is again telling that how computers, supercomputers, and quantum computers can do tasks of different magnitude. And that is where Microsoft has unveiled a new chip with the name of quantum chip, that is Majorana 2. It is named on the basis of an elite Italian scientist. So that is how, let's see what exactly are these Majorana 2 and how it is going to take or leap the whole quantum computing process in the country. So now here you need to understand that it is Microsoft's second generation. We have calling it as that Majorana 2 because one was something which was again a quantum computer chip, but again we have developed it, we have modified it, and what modification is done and what benefits it's going to have, that is something which we are going to understand in this particular discussion, right? So it is helping, and it is something called as next generation topological quantum chip. So quantum chip, of course, basically means that qubits are the same which we are going to be using in quantum computers. Topological, why the term topological here? Because the kind of material which is of course used in quantum computing or making of chips is let's say superconductors. So again here this topological thing is having a higher superconductivity, which is giving no resistance to the current being passed over there, which is very important in the whole quantum computing phases, right? So this chip marks significant leap forward in the quantum computing, overcoming the key barriers related to reliability, speed, and size. I'll discuss these things. And then it is the scientists over there have used agentic AI. So how a traditional AI works, where again we need to give the commands and then it performs certain tasks. For example, a calculator, right? So we feed something, we feed our calculation, and then it gives us the result. But what is agentic AI? It is working in its independent manner without having less dependence on human intervention, and that is something this quantum computing is based on, this agentic AI that can work independently and make decisions, perform tasks, and improve its actions in a self manner. So now understand what are the key features of this Majorana 2. So for that we need to first understand what is a quantum chip. So you have heard about normally computers work and they work on bits. What are bits? Bits are basically they're working in 0 or 1. So maybe on and off, that is 0 and 1. So but now the quantum computers work on quantum bits, that is called as qubits. Again UPSC has asked one time a question, what are qubits? So qubits have a property that they can not only have 0 and 1 state, but they can have phases at the very same time. They can have 0 and 1, and these are the kind of qualities which are required for doing certain task which is very difficult to achieve by normal computers, and that is where these supercomputers come into picture. But in order to get this having in its quantum state, that requires a stability, and for stability we require certain amount of chips which is going to help us that, and that is where this new chip comes into picture. So quantum computer chip is a hardware component at the heart of quantum computers designed to process and manipulate quantum information. Very basic. Classical computing chips we have seen using bits 0 and 1, but quantum computing uses quantum bits or qubits which can represent both 0 1 simultaneously. So now we need to understand how this Majorana 2 is different from its previous version of Majorana 1. Number one, high reliability. It is 1,000 times more reliable than Majorana 2. Why it is more reliable? So now long coherence, that is 20 seconds average qubit lifetime and up to 1 plus minute. What is the meaning of this? Now imagine, let's say you are studying some things and you can only remember the facts for, let's say, 20 seconds or let's say 1 minute, right? But there are instances where again people listen something and they forget it a very instantaneous or maybe at a very instant कि आपने कुछ सुना और आप तुरंत भूल गए. But there are chances कि you are listening something and you are can retain and you can remember it for 20-30 seconds or 1 minute. So this time of coherence is giving quantum computers an edge to solve complicated things. That is not only revolving around 0 and 1. Between that 0 and 1 state, it requires certain time to compute very vast calculations, and that is where this long coherence is very important to build that stability in that quantum state. To stay in equilibrium, we require greater reliability and greater coherence. That is something which has been discussed. Imagine this is a pencil. If I want to balance this pencil in its tip, it is very difficult to achieve. Even a very tiny fraction of, let's say, air can disturb its equilibrium. Similarly, in quantum state, it requires a very high amount of stability at a very precise situation manner. And this is where this Majorana 2 is giving its more, let's say, reliability and more, let's say, coherence as compared to its previous version. And that is what is very important. And advanced material, again, we have discussed lead-based topological superconductors are replacing the aluminum ones for better stability and error resistance. So now we have other chips which are also used in quantum computing, again by different companies. We have Google has Willow, IBM has Condor and Heron, Intel has Tunnel Falls, Amazon Web Services has AWS and etc. So again, this is very important. All these names are very important for your prelims examination, a very important development in the quantum computing phase. Okay, so very important to be remembered for your prelims examination. Next topic we have, again, all of you know about the Ramsar sites and its importance. So any wetland which requires conservation at an international level, those are kept in the Ramsar sites. So India has a lot of wetlands and many of them are getting protection under as the Ramsar site. So we have got our 100th wetland entering into the Ramsar site, which is of course located in Uttar Pradesh with the name of Prakash Narayan Bird Sanctuary, which is designated as India's 100th Ramsar site. That brings us to certain important concepts. What are Ramsar sites, what are wetlands, and why they're important, and some facts about Jayaprakash Narayan Bird Sanctuary. So again, that's how you're going to see things from newspapers as far as examinations are concerned. So if you look at here, basically, this is also called as Surha Tal. It is located in the Balia district of Uttar Pradesh, right? And it has been formed as a natural wetland hai, and perennial oxbow lake. What are oxbow lakes? So basically, whenever rivers form meanders and whenever the meanders get detached from the river and it is cut off, that creates a lake called as oxbow lake. You must have studied them in geography. So that is a basic feature of this bird sanctuary, and this wetland is basically natural in nature. Now, so basically this started consolidation in 1991 from the land areas of the 45 villages called as Surha Tal, and it has been renamed in 2002 to honor Mr. Jayaprakash Narayan, who was an activist and political leader. Now, the area-wise basic facts, just see them, ki how much vast it has in its composition, and that's why it has been added to a Ramsar site. So it has rich avifaunal biodiversity. What are avifaunal? Avifaunal का मतलब क्या होता है? So there are certain birds which are found in specific geography areas or specific locations at a very specific time, and that is where this wetland has also that a kind of a property where again birds of certain specific times only come to that geographical spot, and that is why it has rich avifaunal biodiversity, which has vital wintering ground for migratory birds traveling along the Central Asian flyway. It has a notable fish. देखो यहाँ से we are getting the names of 4 to 5 species, which makes those species very important for your prelims examination. So notable fish includes vulnerable Valago atu and the Begaris fish. Then it has abundance of fish attracts the vulnerable fishing cat, again a very important thing. Then it is again this wetland is a major irrigation and groundwater recharge source, and it of course it has its historical, cultural and religious value, and that is why it is very, these are the facts regarding this wetland in the Prakash Narayan bird sanctuary, which has got the 100th which has got of course the 100th spot in the Indian's Ramsar site. So now basically this is a view of that wetland. Again, जब आप देख लोगे picture wise, so that is how you can remember those topics for a longer duration of time, specifically from environment chapter. Again, this is a look of wetland, that how vast it is, and these are the birds which come over there, right? And it is of course it is attracting irrigation. There are a lot of, let's say, biodiversity of flora and fauna species which are found over there, and that makes it very significant. Then basically what is Ramsar Convention? Again, it is a convention which was signed in the Iranian city of Ramsar in 1971, which came into picture in 1975. India joined, or India ratified this convention in the year 1982. So basically it is a conservation effort for wetlands and their resources. So basically on 3 pillars they have been built up. Number 1, conservation of wetlands of international importance. Number 2, wise use of all wetlands. And number 3, international cooperation on shared wetlands and migratory species. These are the 3. And again, how exactly a wetland is going to be coming under Ramsar Convention or not, it depends upon the 9 criteria which has been put up. If any of the wetland fits in any one of the 9 criteria, then it can be included in the Ramsar site. Again, basic facts important for your prelims examination. Then again, in geography or in environment, you must have heard about wetlands. So what basically are wetlands? Wetlands is a junction or maybe an area which is forming a transition between a terrestrial ecosystem and an aquatic ecosystem, and these are the areas wherein the soil of that particular area has a permanent water cover over most of the time of the year, right? And that is why they're called as wetlands, right? And they have different names. They're called as marshes, swamps, peatlands, lakes, mangroves, floodplains, shallow coastal waters. All of these are there. Wetlands can be natural, wetlands can be man-made, wetlands can be artificial, freshwater, brackish, saline. So that are the different types of wetlands. Now, why are wetlands important? We have read this multiple times in our course of preparation, that again, of course, they are biodiversity hostels because they have a very unique ecosystem, which is a transition between aquatic and, let's say, this terrestrial ecosystem. So again, it has been having roughly 6% of Earth's land surface hai wetlands ka, but it consists of 40% of plant and animal species, and they provide critical habitat and breeding grounds for wildlife. Then we have, just like forests are the lungs of Earth, so wetlands are called as the kidneys of Earth because they help in filtration of water, right? So it filter pollutants and improve water quality. It is known as kidneys of the Earth. Then we have, it is helping in terms of climate regulations. They are a very high storage capacity of carbon in soil, and they help, of course, mitigate climate change. Then they are helping in terms of natural disasters, as they are in a zone of some kind of a system wherein the soil is moisture laden throughout the time. So again, they help in terms of protecting in the times of floods, in the time of cyclones in the nearby areas. They reduce their impact of floods, storms, surges, hurricanes and tsunamis. They protect the terrestrial ecosystem due to this. And then they help, of course, in flood control because they act as natural sponges. They can absorb huge amount of water within them, right? And then of course they have a very high population of fishes in some wetlands, of course, to provide livelihood facilities in terms of food, fodder, fisheries, water, and they are good tourism sites. There are a few important wetlands you must have seen, for example, Chilika Lake, Wooler Lake, right? So remember all those wetlands, remember all important Ramsar sites in India. 100 remember karna, yaad nahi karna is impossible, not possible, but again, with the multiple times you're going to see them state wise, that is how you can remember those 100 wetlands in the which are coming at Ramsar site. No need of remembering it specifically, but again, with the course of seeing them multiple times, you can easily tell that this wetland is coming under Ramsar site or not. So very important topic for your examination. Then we have government has announced major reforms to deepen the government securities and facilitate FPI in the equity segment. So again, two important concepts here for economics: what are GSEC, government securities, and what is the meaning of FPI in the equity segment, that is the Indian share market. So understand, Indian economy to function require a lot of capital. Government needs money, companies need money, and for that we require investment. So we need to make our country investment friendly, and that is where certain reforms have been introduced in the domain of FPI in the equity segment, and of course in the government security segment, to make India attractive for foreign investments. So let's understand what kind of changes have been brought in. Before that, let's understand what is the meaning of FPI and FDI. FPI are basically where again investors invest in assets, right? And they basically invest in the stocks or bonds in another country, and that this FPI does not give them direct ownership. They only have a respective share in that particular company. Then we have government securities. Again, these are government securities where again, if government wants to raise money, it issues bonds, right, in the name of government securities. For example, it tells ki I am giving you a bond of 1,000 rupees with a guarantee that again I will pay back this amount of money after 10 years, and again with interest giving to you. These are government securities, are very highly credible in nature. Then in terms of basic facts, investments by a single FPI or a portfolio in any Indian company must not exceed 10% of its total paid up equity capital. Facts, just see them. But let's understand ki what kind of changes have been brought in the way FPI can enter into India and they can invest in government securities and the share market. What kind of changes have been brought in, that is very important to understand. So now we have done, of course, again LPG ka matlab hमें पता ही है. So again liberalization, where again we have liberalized, we have eased out the process, and that's why we call it as liberalization of investment by individuals. So now there are something called as persons residents outside India. So who exactly are person residents outside India? Basically everyone who is not residing in India, who is residing in foreign countries. For example, NRIs, for example, foreign citizens, right? So here, earlier, in terms of investment in the portfolio investment scheme, only it was allowed to NRIs, that is non-resident Indians, and overseas citizens of India, and in the who were allowed to invest in this portfolio investment scheme. But this year's union budget of 26 and 27 has made ki now we are allowing persons residents outside India, which consist of people or foreigners or maybe NRIs, OCIs. So again, it has increased the base of investment who can invest through this portfolio investment scheme in India, which was initially limited only to OCIs and NRIs. Then we have increased, because earlier there was a capping ki how much amount of investment can be done by an FPI. So that has been of course doubled. Initially we individual investment limit for this PROI was 5%, which has been changed to 10%. So now overall in a respective company, the PROI's investment could only be maximum 12%, but as it has doubled, so of course the aggregate limit has been raised from 12% to 24%, which has been a very important thing. Then what is happening and why were foreign portfolio investors not investing in Indian market? Why? Because let's say if you have invested, you have got some profit out of it. So now, and of course you're getting some paid interest by that particular investment. So you were supposed to pay tax on the interest on, and also also on the capital gain, what you are going to do once you sell that investment. So that tax exemptions have been maybe as a reform has been brought in by the government, so in order to attract FPIs in the country. So tax exemption on foreign portfolio investment in the government securities, income tax on interest and capital gain, दोनों में हटा दिया गया है. Whatever interest you are earning and whatever capital gain you're earning, on both of these items, income tax has been waived on FPIs and investments by bank for international settlements in the GSECs. Then what kind of reforms has been brought in the government security? So earlier there was a limit and there were a limited basket of government securities which were allowed of course by FPIs, but now we have made something called as fully accessible route, which has expanded more such government securities in the basket in which you can invest. So now we are having 15, 30, 40 year, 10 years of GSEC on which there will be no such requirement, and again FPIs can invest even in the sovereign green bonds. What are sovereign green bonds? The bonds or the money which is of course utilized for renewable energies or green projects or working for climate change. Then we have this fully accessible route allows non-residents to invest in specified securities without any quantitative restraint. Matlab, there is no limit on how much amount of investment can you do. And of course, there will be certain exceptions. And they have removed 3 restrictions under general route. For example, short-term investment limit, जो थी कि limit में आप let's say मान लो कि you can invest only let's say 1 crore, but that limit has been increased. Then concentration limit has been of course increased, कि how much amount of investment can you do in a particular company. Of course it has been increased in the name of GSEC as well. And then the security wise limit, again that has also been revised. So this is a very important segment in order to attract foreign investment in the country and making India favorable for investment. That is of course required for growth of the Indian economy. A very important concepts, we came across certain important concepts which are very important for your economics as far as prelims based questions are concerned. Now, again, few important terms we have discussed this. Now we are going to see the personality news, that is Maulana Barkatullah Bhopali 1854 to 1927. You must have read him in the history whenever you read about the Ghadar party and freedom struggle. So again, certain personality comes back in news and they become important thing as a part of personality to be asked in your examination out of all those personality in history. So we have a Barkatullah University in Bhopal. So the executive council of that university has been suggesting to change the name of that particular university, and that is why this personality came into news, right? So he was basically born in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. He was a scholar of Arabic, Persian, Urdu, and also learned German, French, and Japanese. Facts hai, please see them very carefully. He was known as journalist, Islamic scholar, revolutionary nationalist. Again, that's why he was in Ghadar party. In terms of freedom struggle contribution, he has been associated with the Indian revolutionaries at India House in London. Then he was a prominent member of the Ghadar party. He published journals such as Islamic Fraternity and the Il-Islam to promote anti-colonial ideas in Japan. He co-founded Pan-Aryan associations in US in 1906. He was the first Prime Minister of independent India along with some associations including Raja Mahendra Pratap set up India's first government in exile in Kabul in 1915. Right, then values, of course, he had Hindu-Muslim, he talked about Hindu-Muslim unity, he had international solidarity, he had scientific temper, freedom of thought. So again, facts hai, that is around his personality which was in news. So again, this could be a indication ki out of all personalities, this is something which can come up in your examination. Okay? That's how current affairs gives you a hint that what topics are important for the examination. Then we are going to see news in short. The first news here, of course, is E85 fuel. I think a couple of days back we were discussing about this FFVs, that is flex fuel vehicles. Again, Hero Motocorps has launched a bicycle, let's say let's say two-wheeler vehicle, and then maybe Maruti has launched a vehicle that is called as flex fuel vehicles. So government has announced that we are launching E85 fuel. What is E85? Means we know the process of ethanol blending in petrol. So now the composition, how much amount of ethanol is blended in petrol, that is coming up to E20, E85, E15, whatever it is. So in E85 petrol version, there has been use of 85% of ethanol and 15% of petrol. So this is a launch of this because flex fuel vehicles are supposed to run on them. So this has its commercial use has been started. So it is of course consisting of 80 to 85% of ethanol. And this now we are having FFVs vehicles whose engines can operate on varying ethanol petrol from E20 to E100. Matlab they can completely run on ethanol as well. Why is significant? Of course, reduction in greenhouse gas gases, lessen the import of crude oil, and again, it is also going to support ethanol production from agriculture feedstock and boosting farmers' income. So, very important facts for your examination. Then we have Monetary Policy Committee, again a very important committee for your examination. Reserve Bank of India, what are its functions, what is composition of MPC. So again, the 58th meeting of MPC has been completed, and we have revised it has determined the policy repo rate to achieve inflation target, inflation controlled by RBI through monetary policy, government by fiscal policy. Facts hai, this is how you read things and you start revising them in your back in your mind, that whatever things I have read about it, right? So again, they are set up under the 445 ZB of RBI Act of 1984, which was of course amended in 2016 to inculcate MPC as a committee. So the composition consists of 3 members from RBI and 3 members from the government side. And the chairperson, of course, here is RBI governor, who is the ex officio chairman. What's the meaning of ex officio? By the virtue of him holding the post of RBI governor, he automatically becomes the chairman of this particular committee. Then they meet at least 4 times a year, and each member is allowed to vote, and governor only casts a casting vote in case of a tie, just like the speaker or any presiding officer of the house. He also has a kind of voting that he cannot vote in the first instance. He can only cast in his vote in case of a tie. So again, important facts here. Then we have Panchayat Advancement Index. We have read about this index multiple times. That is how digitally through data we are let's say grading different panchayats in the country, right? How exactly panchayats are performing. We did not had any criteria, we did not had any data, we did not had any single source to track their performance, maybe to incentivize certain panchayats, maybe to help panchayats who are in need of help. So again, index was formed by the government with the name of Panchayat Advancement Index, which has been of course made by Ministry of Panchayati Raj. And this is a comprehensive data driven. What's the meaning of data driven? Not only by wordings, by data, we are going to analyze the performance of different panchayats across the country, right? And it is helping us to go for evidence-based planning, performance monitoring, and incentivization of panchayat institutions. Of course, basic seeing it covers 9 challenges, 9 themes, which is again talking about localization of sustainable development goals, right? So again, panchayats have been classified on the basis of achiever, front runners, performer. Why it is in news back again? Because it has, this index has got an award, because of course it is an e-governance tool. So e-governance tool, it has got the gold award at National Award for E-Governance 2026 under the category of digital transformation through data analytics, and that's why it is very important. Then we have Abhilasha biofuels. Again, biofuels, again, it is, there are different type of biofuels. So this is second generation 2G biofuels. How exactly biofuels are being made? Biofuels are being made by food crops, for example, sugarcane and maize. Now, this was making a compromise on food because technically food was used to take out biofuels. But now in the second generation of biofuels, that is this Abhilasha biofuel, wherein we are not using food crops, we are using non-food things. For example, the biomass left. For example, why do you see pollution happening in Delhi? One of the causes, of course, is turtle burning. What if that turtle is not supposed to be burnt? It can be converted into fuel. So that is the advantage of this second generation biofuels, which is of course extracting fuel, and it is just going to work like diesel, right? And the best part is it is called as drop-in fuel. What's the meaning of drop-in fuel? Key, for example, we have seen ki in ethanol blended petrol, we are going to modify, we are going to, of course, make some changes in the existing engine in order to that engine to process that petrol. But now this Abhilasha biofuel, or this biofuel 2G, which is of course there, is of course going to function in any existing let's say vehicle. It does not require any kind of upgradation. It does not require any separate petrol pump to store it. So that is the biggest advantage of this particular 2G biofuel, and that is why the name comes up with the name of Abhilasha. So again, the Technology Development Board under Department of Science and Technology has supported a project to establish commercial scale facility for producing Abhilasha biofuels. We have seen its let's say benefits. It is being used by कैसे बनता है ये non-food biomass? Example, we have agricultural residues, forestry waste, we have crop settle, we have sugarcane bagasse, we have rice straw. So all of these are the things from which we're extracting biofuel. It is just going to work like any other existing diesel, or koi upgradation of any vehicle, any petrol pump is not required, and that is its biggest advantage. Then we have FCNRB accounts, that is foreign currency non-resident bank. So RBI has made certain changes. It is going to, what are basically firstly FCNRB accounts? So basically, if you are an NRI, if you are staying in US, right, and of course you're going to send back the money to India. So of course we had NRI accounts, that is non-resident Indian accounts, which are of course depositing money. So basically you send dollars, but again, in terms of money, it's get deposited, or in rupees denomination, it get deposited in the NRE accounts. Now, in this new mechanism, that is FCNRB accounts, wherein the amount of money is going to be held in dollars itself. कि मान लो कि आपने $10,000 भेजा USA, so NIJ account में जाएगा तो it will be converted into existing exchange rate पे, it will be converted into rupees, and that amount will be deposited. So again, the challenge was it was getting very much, let's say, in a situation अगर rupee appreciate करिए depreciate करिए, so of course the value of your amount of money which you have sent is going to fluctuate. So for that mechanism, we have something called as FCNRB accounts. So certain banks have these kind of accounts wherein if you are sending dollars, if you are sending any, there are few 4 to 5 designated currencies under which you can directly deposit that currency in that account without converting it to rupee denomination, and that is something the flexibility. But the problem was कि banks has to support that. अब मान लो कि you have deposited, let's say, $10,000 in that account. Now there is a volatility in the exchange rate. Of course, banks are going to have face the problem of that exchange rate fluctuation. अब rupee depreciate कर गया, then what would happen? And that is something the banks were going for hedging. They were buying basically insurance so that to hedge against that currency fluctuation. तो RBI ने एक नया proposal निकाला है कि if you are setting new FCNRB accounts, so we are going to give you free of cost hedging. That is, they are going to give full hedging cost will be borne until 30th September 26, or to authorize dealers banks on fresh 3 to 5 year foreign currency non-resident bank deposits. So of course, Q mechanism is just to attract more foreign currency, so in the Indian banks, so that again the currency fluctuation should not happen, and that is something which has been there over here. So again, very important thing which has been announced by RBI. Then we have Wolbachia. What exactly is this? You must have seen there is Aedes mosquito, which is again causing dengue, chikungunya, malaria. So basically, now Google has launched an initiative with the name of Google parent company Alphabet has proposed it to release 32 billion Wolbachia infected male mosquitoes in Florida and California to reduce disease transmission due to sterilizing wild Cluex mosquito, which is creating a virus called as West Nile virus. Let's understand very simply कि once mosquito bites you, if mosquito has a virus, let's say dengue virus, chikungunya virus, then again of course you're getting affected out of it. Now imagine a situation ki there is something called as Wolbachia. Wolbachia kya hota hai? It is basically a naturally occurring bacterium found in many insect species. But again, these naturally occurring bacterium is not found in Aedes mosquitoes, which are causing these dengue, chikungunya, and malaria. So now, in order to infuse into them artificially, Google has proposed leading that we are infecting these Aedes male mosquitoes through this naturally occurring bacterium in order to, because why only male mosquitoes? Because male mosquitoes does not bite humans. Only female mosquitoes or female Aedes mosquitoes are biting humans. Why? Because they need blood, of course, for mating. Due to the time of mating, they need to go for fertilization of their eggs, and for that they require blood. So with this mechanism, what would happen? The male mosquitoes, whenever they are going to mate with a female mosquito, then of course eggs are released, and many mosquitoes are born out of it in the process of mating. But once a infected male mosquito is again mating with female mosquito, Aedes mosquito, which does not have a virus, then there will be no, let's say, mosquito formed out of it. So of course it is going to significantly reduce the amount of mosquitoes in the area, and that is why this initiative have been launched by Google. Again, facts hai, please see what exactly terms are used over here. What is Wolbachia? What is this Aedes mosquito? All those things are very important for your examination for basic sciences. Then we have chloramethanol and nitrofurans. Again, you must have seen Alfonso was in news. Japan did not accepted the batches of Alfonso which was sent. Recently, again, India is one of the producers of, let's say, shrimp across the world. And again, US, Europe Union and Japan has put up that we are not going to have shrimps coming from you. Why? Because your shrimps are containing something called as chloramphenicol and nitrofurans, which are very dangerous, right? So both of these drugs are banned in all food producing animal rearing systems, but these drugs were found in the shrimps which are going out from India. So basically about these two drugs, that is chloramethanol. So again, it is an antibiotic used in treatment of bacterial infections, and it can treat threats. Kya hai iska? It can cause aplastic anemia in humans, even in small concentrations. Agar aap wo shrimps consume karenge which has this drug, then again you are going to have something called as aplastic anemia. Then we have nitrofurans. Of course, these are again antibiotics used for antibacterial and anti-inflammatory purposes. But again, if you consume it, then what would happen? It is going to be banned due to the persistence of metabolites in animal tissues and their potential of carcinogenity. So again, that's why these two chemicals very important. And again, how important it is for food processing sector, what kind of reforms are required to make it more attractive in the foreign market. Again, a context you can use in your mains answer around food processing industries. Then we have Sea of Azov. Why it was in news? Why? Because Ukraine, 5 ships were carrying some illegal cargo in the Sea of Azov, and that is why they were stuck over there, and that's why this Sea of Azov is in news. So find the location of Sea of Azov, where it is located. It is located, of course, in Eastern Europe, between Russia in the eastern side, Ukraine in the northwestern side, and Crimean Peninsula in the western side. It is connected through Black Sea. This is Sea of Azov. This is Black Sea, and then it is again conducted to the Atlantic Ocean via this Black Sea, Sea of Marmara, then Aegean Sea, and through Mediterranean Sea. So again, the entire things become important for you. Then there is a Strait of Kerch, which is again a narrow water of body, which is again a narrow landmass, which is connecting Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, right? So again, it has this Sea of Azov has a very low salinity because influx of fresh water from the nearby rivers yours. So important facts hai, you need to see them, you need to locate them in map, again helping you to prepare place in newses, and again important physical features from the world geography point of view. So that's how we come to the end of this news today discussion. Now all important questions which could be framed from the topic which I have discussed will pop up in your screen. Now it is very very important that you come across all those questions, try and solve them. If you have read the news, now it is your understanding that how you are making reflections around those topics when it comes as a form of question. Please post your answers in the comment section. That is of course going to engage students in the whole idea of creating and preparing for prelims examination. Lastly, Vision Eyes has come up with a one-stop solution for your current affairs, that is digital current affairs platform. Go and navigate the website. It is certainly going to help you a lot in terms of your current affairs preparation for UPSC examination. Till next time, thank you so very much and have a good night.